This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
Hey, welcome to today's War Room Moments. My name is Jason Miller, your podcast host. And today I have my good veteran friend, Scott, on today. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, the first thing I like to do is really let you introduce yourself because I'm horrible at it. So introduce yourself and tell people what your superpower is. Because you got Superman in the back there ripping the flag out. So
yeah, that was intentional or aspirational, one of the two, right? So
yeah, there you go.
But anyway, yeah, I run CFO4VETS. Scott Chesson runs CFO4VETS, which is really a small business CFO consulting services designed to help entrepreneurs and small businesses between 2 and 20 million. Really to kind of grow revenues, expand profits, and enhance value. So my superpower is really just helping a business completely understand what's going on inside the business. There are a lot of times you get to a business, and I'll be the first CFO that they've ever had, or senior finance person, and they often have kind of, I'll call them urban myths about what's going on with the business, or folklore in terms of what they think is happening. But it's not necessarily what's happening. So I like to dig in and kind of go, okay, this is really what's happening with the business. Here are your key performance indicators for your industry. Here's how you stack up against your competitors. And then here's what's going on with the profits or the pieces of your business. This service is very successful. This product over here is draining cash and resources out of your business. So that's what I'm really good at, is digging in and helping them understand their business, and then go from kind of looking backwards. I call it retroactive scorekeeping. I'm keeping score about what happened last year, last month, and going strategic looking. Let's plan to scale and be profitable. Let's build a successful financial plan going forward and not fly by the seat of our pants. So that's what I help businesses do.
Yeah. And I know you do a lot of work with vets, and that's like one of your primary focuses. And I think that's how you and I got connected to begin with, was the veteran connection through, I believe, Michael Sipe, right?
Yeah, that's right. Michael is a fellow Academy grad, Navy, like myself. Mm-hmm. We got connected exactly through the veteran connection, and obviously I am a son of two veterans. It's very unusual. My mother was actually a veteran as well, and a military spouse. I'm a veteran. My brother is a veteran. So, and I know lots of veterans within my DNA, within my uncles, aunts, everything else. So I really started this business as a mission to help veteran-owned, it's military spouse-owned businesses, but all small businesses. I work with any small business where it's a good fit for them and for me. But my passion is obviously giving back to that community, for sure, to the veteran military spouse community.
Yeah, and that's one hell of a great mission to be on, and we have a quarterly vet give back program right here in Boulder that we do for veteran startups and all those things. And it's important. I mean, all businesses are important. I'm not saying they're not, but it's like, if we can give that veteran community that little extra jump, that's an awful good thing, right? For the sacrifice, right? So it's a wonderful thing.
It is. And the other thing I just pass on, hey, when I got out of the military, I went to graduate school, went right to work. I didn't know what I was doing in terms of because I was straight from the academy, you commission, and you go to work in a business world, and it's like a foreign country. I mean, it really was. It took me 6 or 7 years to kind of figure out, okay, you're in these big businesses and you need to go work in a small business and have a greater impact, to get to better exercise your leadership muscles, your financial skills. You just need to have a greater impact, because you're not having as great of an impact as you did when you were a military officer. And so once I figured that out, but I will say it took me a little while to kind of figure it out. So I always like to say, I think that's part of it too, is helping people who are making the transition, help them think, here are the things you want to think about to make the transition, to help yourself. And your skills, although not the same, are directly translatable to success in business. The discipline, the hard work, the mission. So that's the other piece of it, I think, that is very valuable and worth doing. And I enjoy every minute of that, giving back in that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of brings us to our discussion topic, and that's you're in the money world, right? So you're in the world of handling money. What's the trends that you've seen? Inflation's out the roof. All these things are just compiling and compiling and compiling. And what trends are you seeing with the people you're working with, businesses, cause and effects, and all these different things? I'm really curious to get your take on that.
Well, like you said, inflation is just off the charts, and it kind of came out of nowhere. We've had almost no inflation for years and years and years, probably 12, 13 years. And so now all of a sudden it's out of control, because obviously supply, everybody's heard the supply chain disruptions, but what that translates into is higher cost of goods for anybody providing a service or a product, right? It's harder to get the things that you may have easily gotten before. So that means there's, it's the supply demand equation. So it drives up the cost. So then you have to kind of revisit your own pricing structure, and how can you be more efficient? Can you charge more? Can you pass some of that along? It presents a lot of pricing predicaments, because you have to know that. And then, is the information from as early or as recent as last year, is that still viable, or is inflation taking it and kind of throwing that out and say, I've got to deal with real time. I've got to be more real time than looking at 6 months ago to kind of try to figure out what my cost of goods are going to be, and how do I appropriately price for it. But the other side of that, I think too, that I've seen, is that a lot of businesses, because of COVID and everything else for 2 years, they would give breaks on their pricing to their clients because of that. And now they're going, well, we have to reinstate these pieces that we may not have charged for a couple of years. So that helps offset it. But that's really, like you said, the cost of goods. It also, there's a hiring, it's difficult to find talent. So that means the cost of acquiring and hiring people is more expensive as well. So that's the other thing. Your profit margins are going to be affected by that. They're going to be affected by inflation in a couple of different ways. And when you have a labor shortage, a talented labor shortage in a lot of cases, then you're going to pay more money to hire people. And then, so those two things kind of go together. The other thing is, if you're borrowing, the cost of borrowing is going up, because interest rates, similar to inflation over the last 12, 13 years, it's been pretty flat. It's been next to nothing, interest rates. I mean, they're historically low forever. And now I think in 2022, we could clearly see they're edging up. The Fed says they're going to raise the rates. What does that mean? What that means is that the cost of borrowing is going to go up for businesses and for consumers. So I'm seeing that as well. If you're borrowing money, you have a line of credit, whatever it is, it's going to cost you more than it did a year ago, and probably a lot more than it did 2 years ago by the end of this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because what are we at, about 7.8 or something inflation rate now, something like that?
Yeah,
it's right in there somewhere. And God, what is it gonna do to small business if we hit 10? Right? I mean, I don't know what all that was back in the Depression, but I mean, we have to be right up there, right? I think, aren't we?
Well, here's the most recent iteration of that. And I was in at the academy in the early 80s. The interest rates were 18% for part of that time in the early 80s, and when the Reagan era, and that, it was just crazy. Or when you're a student, it doesn't really affect you that much. But it's, again, I think it's just the cost of goods. Everybody's going to have to be scrambling. They're going to have to be, I always tell businesses too, do zero-based budgeting, small businesses. When you get to, what that means is just start from scratch when you build a budget. You may even have to start from scratch and doing a forecast, which I recommend, a reforecast every quarter. With some of your cost of goods, you may have to say, okay, can I get it from a different source? Can I substitute something? What ways can I cut costs without impacting the level of service and that I'm providing? What can I do that's not going to impact me on the front lines when I'm dealing with clients or selling products or e-commerce? So I think it's scary, but hopefully, again, it's just something you go, okay, I'm going to have to deal with it. That means that I'm also going to have to look at how I price my services and products more frequently to keep up with it, because, we all know, if you can see it in the gasoline pump, right? The cost of gasoline goes up. They don't hesitate to pass that along to the consumer, right? It happens. Smaller business, right. We're not in that kind of semi-monopoly, oligopoly type world, but I still think you have to really take a close look at your pricing, and then of course you've got to revisit your cost structure a little more frequently, just to make sure that you're not getting all your profits aren't running away with inflation.
Yeah. Well, and here's another interesting, whole piece of this. So you have the capital side, the money side, but then you got the human capital side of it, right? So it's like, I'll just use the military as an example. They gave I think it was 2.7% raise in January. But on the human capital side, you get a 2.7% raise, but inflation 7.8. How do you balance that out? Well, the answer is it's pretty damn hard to do it, but now you start looking at companies inside companies, and they've got a staff of 100 people. Now, how can you stay competitive? Because you're going to price yourself out of the market on the human capital side of it. That's the whole growth and scale model, right? Growth is the people and scale is the money. So it's like, it was hard enough before. Right. And now you add all this extra complexity in. Well, now Jill can't afford groceries and she's asking for a raise. So is Bob, Jan, Tom, everybody else. And it's like, you can only push the price points up so high of your product. And now guess what? Now you got to start letting people go. So it's a scary place to be, right?
It's a scary place to be, and you're in a labor market where you're generally not. It is an employee's market. It's not an employer's market. On top of that, so that means on top of everything else, it costs you more. The cost of acquisition is greater, and so you are going to take, if it continues like this, you can take a dip in your profits. It depends on the business and the industry too, and the various figures. It's not 100%, but you're going to have an impact on it. And then you kind of look at it. So what does that mean if inflation's going up? Well, we know every year cost of healthcare goes up. Doesn't matter. And we are in a small business, with old high claims, 36% increase, 36% increase. It's just not sustainable. So you have to adjust how you're dealing with that. And it's the same thing. You kind of have to adjust. And that's the hardest thing with the human capital side, is once you have put something out and implemented it, it is a benefit, or it's a plan, some kind of benefit plan, then it is, it's hard to take it away. You could say, oh, well, we can take it away at any time, but the reality is you take it away, they've lost something. And that has a negative impact on human capital, morale, and everything else. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happen, where you get to a point you cannot live within the system that you set up, or the benefits that you set up, the incentive plans that you set up. You can't live within those anymore, and you take them away. It causes problems. It really does on the human capital side, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. It's we always have to try to think glass half full, right? So it's like,
yes,
this too shall pass, right? But it's like, what's left in the wake of it all. That really is, that's the question, because it isn't the Walmarts and the Targets and all those companies. It's the small business. That's the backbone of America, right? Not all these big companies.
Yeah, who's hiring, who's creating jobs. It's small businesses. Right. So I think, again, if, with small, like you said, this too shall pass. And I'm a glass half full guy too, all the way. I just feel like it's going, so maybe what you have to do in addition to that, something you should be doing anyway, is looking for alternative revenue streams. What else? I have to be very innovative. And I think we all have to be innovative anyway nowadays, because somebody's out there trying to disrupt. I'll just give an example of what happened to me yesterday. Yesterday, I needed a notary for a document. I don't know, I changed some legal aspect of my business, like the address or something. I had an online notary. I had an experience with an online notary where I didn't have to call somebody to come notarize a document. We did it all virtually. I've never seen that before. And so you can see, I just thought to myself, wow, somebody was very innovative and smart in creating this business that nobody, probably through the pandemic, they created it, where you can do you can get your documents notarized virtually. I've never seen that before, but it impressed me. And I thought to myself, see, everything can be disrupted. I mean, everybody, there's nothing that is, cannot be disrupted. So so all that being said, and not to be negative, but just, hey, let's keep innovating. Let's patient revenue paths. Let's be smart about it. Let's think about something that nobody else is doing that's right within our, our sweet spot. That's right there. That's maybe it's a nice adjacent piece of revenue stream or something else. But I also think you always have to be innovating and thinking about that, because you never know when somebody's going to take your notary business and virtualize the damn thing, which again, it was just amazing. And it was, it was a good experience. The whole thing was easy. So I was it's just a good example that I happened to experience myself yesterday. So,
yeah, right. Well, you know what? That's, you go back in time and you look at what we created in the Industrial Revolution, right? And all the big machinery and all this stuff, right? And now it's like, that's all been compounded down to a 14-inch screen. Right?
Exactly.
So it's pretty amazing what a little innovation will do, right? It's like I was telling somebody earlier today on one of the other shows, I'm not the most tech savvy guy. I mean, but like, I have a daughter that's 3 and a son that's 5, and that generation is going to be way smarter than us. Not because they're not necessarily because they're more intelligent. They're more plugged in. So they have information, it's all right there at their fingertips. And she's 3, and hell, she knows how to use my iPhone better than I do already. It's just like, it's insane, right? So, and it's like all those things, right? They just compound, and that drives everything, though. It drives finance, it drives all these things. And it's really pretty shocking, actually, what these kids are doing today.
I have a 23 and a 25-year-old. My 23-year-old, I watch him play games, gaming and those kind of things. I don't know how you do. I kind of look at him like, I don't even know how you know what you're doing. So, and that's like 6 steps beyond Pong or whatever it was, that was around when I was doing. Yeah, Jason, there's a good story. I saw Fred Hayes, one of the Apollo 13 astronauts, speak several years ago, many years ago, probably over 20 years ago now. And he was talking about the computer and the RAM, the size of it that they went to the moon with, right? Well, those guys didn't go to the moon, but the ones that went to the moon, they went around the moon and came back. So, but 5 megs, that was it. He said it was a 5 megabyte computer that we went to the moon with in 1969. So think about that, and think about today, where we have gigabytes, terabytes, and on and on. and we went to the moon with that technology. And it was astounding him saying that. And I heard him say that about 20 years ago, probably 25 years ago. And I just thought to myself, and now you look at where we are now, but it was just amazing to think of the fact that we got there and back with that kind of computing capability. So,
yeah, a terabyte's like nothing now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Nothing.
My computer has a terabyte of storage on it, and 2 days ago it said your disk is about full. You need. And I was like, really? Holy crap! But we consume information differently now, so it's just a lot different world for sure. But well, that kind of leads me to, it is a different world, right? And I think part of our job is to support the younger business owners that are coming up, because as we spoke before the show, our generation didn't do the best job of that. And, we have a chance to do a better job without requiring a check, right, involved in it all the time. And so if you could share one of the probably dozens of bucketfuls of struggles that you've been through, because we all have, but what's a struggle that you would go back and tell your, previous self, hey, this is coming, and this is how you're going to get around it? What would that be for you that you could share with a young CEO?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think everybody, again, disruption, technology. I think I've seen it at a couple of different businesses where it depends if you have, shall we say, a seasoned employee base. And I've worked with several where the employee base is very seasoned. And then someone's going to come along and they are going to disrupt the living heck out of you, because they're going to see that you have to keep innovating with your technology, whether you want to or not. And that's the case. Sometimes people don't want to. But the thing is, somebody's going to be eating your lunch, because they're going to take something that maybe took 8 hours and they're going to turn it, it's going to take 30 minutes. Many years ago, when my second CFO job, I stepped in there. They were 20 years privately owned, bought by a publicly traded company, a big marketing advertising conglomerate. I went in there and it took 60 minutes to issue a contract. It took 60 minutes to issue one contract. And they issued about 4,000 contracts per year, agreements as part of the business. Mm-hmm. So within a year, we knocked it down from 60 to 1 minute. So it's just kind of, again, I look at it, and there was a whole lot of other innovation within that took it, but it was just kind of, everybody has to be as operationally as efficient as possible in business. And so you're going to run into that. You're going to think, I've got a business that is relatively bulletproof in terms of technological disruption. And I'm here to tell you that is not the case. Nobody's business is immune to that. It may be immune for a while, but at some point, somebody's going to come along and they're going to disrupt your business. So you always want to I always say, just stay forward-looking, stay open, and the other thing is, I would say, don't hire just people from within your industry. Hire people with different ways of thinking, or people that are just like you. Really hire diverse people with different ideas, because that helps fuel innovation in the business. But I think that one of the biggest things that I've seen over and over again is don't want to evolve technologically, and then at some point somebody just eats your lunch, and then you could be out of business if that doesn't come to fruition. And the other thing that I would say is probably a more tangible example than that. If you have a piece of your business that is not performing as a small business owner, and you've got let's say you've got 4 lines of business or 4 products, and one is not performing and is dragging the rest of it down, it's because it's draining resources, time, and money. Don't wait. Don't stick with it because I can make it work. We can keep trying this. It's okay to say, hey, that doesn't work. That's not working. because I've seen this many years ago when I was a controller, we had 6 lines of business, and one of them was not performing. It was killing us between resources, cash, and everything else. And then finally, after 2 years, we shut it down. We should have shut it down 2 years earlier, and it really hurt the business because every part of the business was affected. It wasn't like you've got 6 different standalone businesses. You've got 6 under this umbrella. It's a little bit of a travel holding company, right? But and you just look at the time and the energy and the resources, let alone the cash. And he kept throwing resources at it, ideas at it. And at some point, it's okay to say, look, my idea didn't work. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to say it didn't work. You know what? Let's redeploy those resources to somewhere where it's going to work, something else that's going to work better. It's okay if things don't work perfectly. Ideas, concepts, services, products. It's okay to shut them down and move on and say, okay, that's sunk cost and energy. Let's not devote any more time to it. I think that's the hardest thing because people get so invested in it. They don't want to let it go. And I go, let it go.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, we've all got like married to our idea and we're like, oh my God, this is going to knock it out of the park. That's usually the one that fails anyway. It's the one that you go, that shit ain't going to work.
That works like a charm.
That's the one that works great. Right. So I don't know. I think sometimes you just gotta, know when to chamber around and put a bullet in it. Right.
You do. And it's
sure.
hard. It's hard because like you said, you're emotionally tied to this idea. And I think a lot of people with steel, you've got a tremendous will. If you're a veteran, you think I can make this work. Or, or somebody like that, I can do it. And you're used to saying, well, I'll figure out a way to make it work. But at some point you got to go, hey, let's put an end to this miserable thing. It doesn't work. And it actually hurts the entire business because if you're small, it's not limited to the product. It's very unlikely because it's not going to be standalone. So it's part of the whole mix. And if it hurts the business, and I saw that, and I go, golly, I was pulling my hair out for 2 years, going, we should shut this down. We should shut this down, and we didn't. And
right.
It's a hard one, but it is a worthwhile to kind of go, let's pull the plug on this thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, thanks for that. And just to kind of transition on here, the last question I like to really ask is, if there was one person that you could have had here today with us, dead or alive, whatever the case may be, mentor, friend, family member, whatever, that you always had that question you never got to ask, who would it be and what question would you ask?
I like history, like American history in particular, and I'd just love to ask Abraham Lincoln, just kind of Lincoln. I'd love to ask him, how did you pick your generals? How did you pick the head of the Union Army over and over again? And I know you kept changing them out because they weren't doing the job and they didn't have enough grit to go fight. But how, I would ask, but I'd really love to know. I'd really love to hear his thinking because obviously he's quite brilliant man. But I've always wanted to ask that question because you read it over and over and I go, okay, all right, who's the next guy? You had to go through like 6 till you finally got the Grant. So I would have loved to have had him on there just to ask that question because, that's the thing in business too, is selecting your leaders, selecting your trusted advisors. That can make or break your business. And obviously it probably may have extended the Civil War. It's easy to say in hindsight. All I can do is what I've read and the history on the pages. He lived it. So we're Monday morning quarterbacking something that happened 160 years ago. Still, I would love to hear what he had to say because I'm sure there are good reasons for all of it. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I bet you a lot of it his train of thought would surprise you a bit, probably.
It probably would, because I think, again, his like, I always think that people, sometimes they take people at face value, whether they have a strong Southern accent or whether this was this tall gentleman from Illinois and they underestimated the heck out of him. And I think we have a tendency to do that and maybe to say, well, this is what they're thinking. But like you said, people like that, they tend to be nonlinear thinkers. They tend to think on a different plane than the rest of us, I believe. And so that's why I would just want to pick his brain, just because I'd love to hear the answer more than anything else.
Right. Yeah. No kidding. Right. Well, hey, Scott, how do people get a hold of you? How would you want people to reach out to you from here and work with your genius?
Well, for one, they can reach me at Chess84 at CFO4VETS.com. That's my email. And that's CFO4. The 4 is an actual 4, the number 4. So Chess84 at CFO4VETS.com. That's a good way to do it. That's probably the easiest way. My website is CFO with a 4vets.com. And there's a way you can engage me there as well, or you can set up a Calendly with me on there and consult and talk. And I'm happy just to talk. There's to anybody who just wants to discuss CFO, what the business is about, and no hurry, no musts. We'd just like to understand what your difficulties are. But that's probably the easiest way to reach me.
Yeah, great, Scott. Always a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your valuable day to be here on this podcast. And I hope they caught those little nuggets, because there was quite a few in there. It's whether or not they caught them or not. So.
I hope so. It's my pleasure, Jason. Loved being part of SAB, and thanks for having me on today. It's a great pleasure.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of War Room Moment. As always, dream it, believe it, and achieve it. My name is Jason Miller, your podcast host, signing off.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.